Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, 8 Real Data-Backed Predictions for PPC in 2018. My name is Michelle, and I'm just here to get things started before I pass things off to today's expert. So just a couple of things before we get to today's content. Some of you may be unfamiliar with WordStream. Maybe this is your first webinar with us. If so, welcome. We're excited to have you. For others, you may be familiar with our thought leadership on online advertising across platforms, but we also do have a software that enables you to really optimize your online advertising efforts quickly and efficiently. So if you're interested in maybe learning more about that or checking out some of our free tools, you can definitely do so at our website. Just head to wordstream.com. You'll find lots of resources there. So more content about the webinar. We will be recording today's presentation, so all registrants will receive an email within 48 hours or so, and you'll have the recording and the slide deck, so feel free to share that with your team members or review the content that way. And also, we will save time for question and answers at the end of the presentation, so be sure to submit those questions as we go, right there in your GoToWebinar dashboard. Okay, and without further ado, my favorite part of webinars, and Mark knows this, is to introduce our presenter today. Mark is our senior data scientist at WordStream. He has over 5 years of experience in paid search, and last year he was voted the 5th most influential PPC expert of 2017. Mark is an absolute rock star. Could not be in better hands for predictions for what to expect for the world of online advertising in this coming year. So with that, I will hand things off to Mark.
Thanks, Michelle. First of all, that figure from 2017, we should already start making predictions about that. Like, 5 is kind of becoming a stale number. But before I really get into like what 2018 do, now that I've like stroked my ego just a little bit, I want to talk about like how a lot of people generally talk about predictions for the new year. And like, there's tons of content. I know that like Michelle, even as we were planning this, we discussed doing something like this in November, but even as the first week of 2018 started, we both received a bunch of emails, lots of content, lots of webinars, all focusing on like other predictions for the new year. So I want to talk about like how we generally make predictions for the new year. And a lot of people, when they make predictions for the new year, or when they create resolutions for the new year, they kind of create resolutions or create predictions about what they hope happens. And then they let things dive in from there. So I guarantee you look at the most common New Year's resolutions, and every year, what are the most common New Year's resolutions? They're to find someone special, they're to lose weight, or get in shape, or get healthy, or to get rich, or to save more money. But that's, you know, they're the same things year over year. That's the 2016 New Year's resolution and the 2017 New Year's resolution. I've been trying to lose 10 pounds for several years now. But unless I start doing something about that, I shouldn't expect that to necessarily happen. So when I'm making predictions in this, I'm not going to look at what I want to have happen. In fact, everything that I'm going to bring up today, I'm going to be looking at actually what's happened in the past first. And so, because past actions generally are the best indicator of future behaviors. So if I want to think about what's going to happen in 2018, what I want to do today is I want to look at what trends evolved over the course of the last couple of years, particularly in 2017, and see how these players, how Google, how Facebook, how Bing has generally reacted to these kinds of trends in the past to make these predictions. And so with that, I want to dive in and start talking about what's going to happen in 2018. And I want to back this on data, and if you have any questions or if you think completely differently, then please call out in the webinar questions box, and we'll have a conversation about it at the end. So my first prediction is about Facebook, saying that Facebook is going to expand well beyond your social feed. Facebook is, of course, a giant player, has become a giant player in the world of digital marketing. So it's kind of funny to say this, because I remember I was at WordStream. Michelle mentioned the fact I've been doing this for 5 years. I joined WordStream about 4 years ago. But at the time, like, Facebook was a name that you were familiar with, but you didn't think of it as an ad platform necessarily. Even a year and a half ago, In March 2016, Facebook was growing. It had 3 million active advertisers on it, and it had about $5 billion in ad revenue. It was certainly known, it was certainly around, it was an option, but it wasn't considered a must-do. Whereas just over the course of 18 months, Facebook has doubled the number of advertisers and the revenue from those advertisers. So today, like this is just Q4 or Q3 2017 data. So even getting more up-to-date data once Facebook releases those numbers, you imagine that Facebook's only growing, and they're growing at a fairly exponential rate still. So in 18 months, Facebook's more than doubled its advertising network. It's posed to keep growing. And that's really exciting for Facebook, but it also poses a unique threat to Facebook. Because at the end of the day, although the number of advertisers is growing, the number of users, they can't just add more users to a network that has 80% adoption. So it's really interesting because Facebook, Facebook ads, as we think about them in our feeds today, they were first introduced in 2007, and they've obviously gone through a lot of iterations since then. But mostly, when we think of Facebook ads, we think of what we see when we're scrolling through our feed, either on our phone or on our desktop, either what's going on in our feed or in that right hand on our desktop. But over the years, Facebook's been looking to get beyond just ads within Facebook itself. So Messenger was introduced and separated from Facebook about 3 years ago. And for a long time, Messenger didn't have ads specifically within it. It was just an app that was there to message people on Facebook. It's grown a lot in popularity. It now rivals one of the largest Messenger ad platforms in the world. But until very recently, until September, it was completely ad-free. In September, Facebook started introducing these kinds of Messenger ads, as you see throughout your Messenger feed. And so that's really interesting. It's really important to understand that transition, how Facebook is looking to expand or is currently expanding beyond just our social feeds themselves. Because right now, we are all talking about Instagram and Instagram's growth. Instagram ads roughly have about 20% the revenue share of what Facebook has. So we're expecting, again, similar kinds of exponential trend in the growth of Instagram users as well as in the growth of Instagram advertisers over the next coming years. But why I want to draw attention to Instagram in particular is at the end of 2017, Facebook began to say that they were going to separate Instagram's messaging platform, Instagram Direct, into its own standalone app. And so if we look at what they've done in the past, when Messenger separated, they waited a couple of years and then introduced ads within that app as well. We should expect that as Instagram opens up their messaging app, that Facebook is going to look to continue to monetize on that new app, a very similar kind of platform. So as we play around with Messenger ads, we need to think about the fact that these are Facebook, but they're also going to be in Instagram, and they're also probably going to be in a lot of other platforms that that Facebook controls. When we talk about a lot of other platforms, we have to think of, we think of Facebook as Facebook.com, but Facebook isn't just Facebook.com or Instagram. Facebook's acquired 65 companies since starting in 2005. And so that's a lot. So Facebook, it's not just a social giant, but it also owns a lot of additional companies. It owns Instagram, of course, but it also owns a lot of video recognition platforms. It owns a lot of VR platforms. It owns a lot of messaging platforms. It owns a number of platforms that you honestly wouldn't think about. You go through this list of 65, and a lot of them are kind of all over the place. So when we talk about Facebook expanding, there's actually a lot of opportunity to do so in their own acquisitions. So if we were to look at WhatsApp, for instance, WhatsApp was bought by Facebook in 2014. It has a very similar kind of product as their Messenger product. Right now, WhatsApp currently has a user base over 1 billion active monthly users, and that makes it the most popular messaging application of all time, period. And whereas Messenger is very common in North America, WhatsApp is very, very common in Central Asia, Pacific Asia. It has a lot of international reach that Messenger doesn't necessarily have. And so when WhatsApp was originally acquired, WhatsApp insisted the fact that they were not going to monetize the platform, that they would never serve ads on it. But what's really interesting is that it's true that WhatsApp today doesn't support any kind of advertising. If you were to go diving within the code of Facebook Ad Manager, you can actually see hints of references to WhatsApp. So it looks like right now Facebook is currently beginning to toy around with engineering ads within Facebook Ad Manager for WhatsApp. So right here we see this. For those of you who are not coders amongst us, we see a very simple command that looks like it's written so that users could send a WhatsApp message to a potential advertiser. And that's very similar to a similar kind of product that Facebook Messenger currently offers. So as we're looking to expand, as Facebook's looking to expand more into these kinds of messaging apps, yes, we're expecting it to continue to grow on Messenger. Yes, we're looking at Instagram Direct, but this other acquisition, WhatsApp, currently not monetized, is very likely one of the next dominoes to fall in this. So WhatsApp poses a lot of opportunity for Facebook beyond the feed, but as does Oculus. Oculus was also acquired by Facebook back in 2014. And at the time, Oculus was really just a concept at the time. It had a couple of demos available, but today, Oculus now supports over 100 games and apps. And as AR and VR becomes more popular, well, you expect that they're going to look to monetize that with different kinds of augmented reality and virtual reality apps. And so the possibilities here are kind of endless. A lot of what we look to buy, we're looking to buy physical products. And if we were to look at how we get that piece of furniture in a room, or how it looks within that room, there's a lot of opportunity for AR and VR to pair with advertisers there as well. So Facebook, looking to expand well beyond what's considered social and what's considered our social feeds, and begin to play in more markets here. And that's a lot of opportunity for advertisers. Second big prediction is I'm really calling an explosion of new search ad formats. And so search ads, nothing new at all. They're not going anywhere, but how search ads are going to answer questions is certainly evolving. So when Google first introduced search ads back in the year 2000, this is what they looked like. They were very small, they were very simple. The standard text ad ran from 2000 all the way to 2017. And these 90-character small ads performed roughly the same over a 17-year-old period. But last year, Google finally killed them. They introduced expanded text ads, of course, larger, with more opportunity to say things, with more opportunity for you to connect to a potential searcher. And so what we're seeing is the fact that Google isn't straying away from search, but instead they're giving different ways to answer people's questions. And I imagine that throughout 2018, Google's not going to get rid of the search ad at all, but instead it's going to allow you different ways to connect to how someone's searching. So for instance, if we looked at shopping ads, Google first introduced shopping ads in 2010. And what they did is they showed for branded searches or for very product-specific searches at the top of the SERP, and they allowed you to browse that particular product. Well, in the middle of 2017, they didn't look to change the shopping ads, but instead they started showing these shopping showcase ads. And rather than serving an ad for a product-specific search, generic search, something that's a little less product-specific, something that's a little top funnel. Here are the searches for summer dresses. It instead allows advertisers to catalog, but then a specific dress. This is a slightly different way of answering that question. Rather than serving a product ad for someone who is specifically searching for a product ad, show for someone who is searching for a much larger range of products. People in a different set of the buying cycle. People might be looking to buy when they're searching for a summer dress, but just to browse. And this allows people to browse before they ultimately end up on a site. And for ads, imagine what Google is going to continue to do is that they're also going to begin to serve different kinds of extensions for people who are in lower funnels. Earlier in 2017, they've been trying to test this out for a while, but it's finally beginning to pick up traction again. And I imagine that it's going to find in 2018. But these have been on and off showing. I imagine that Google's finally looking to make this a permanent fix in 2018, so that people on Google use product, I see it on Google, and I'm going to buy it here. I don't need to go to a landing page and then a checkout information. I can purchase that in one click. One-click purchase, very similar to something you're seeing in another major platform. So there's also new ways. They allowed advertisers a new way of getting those calls, of managing those calls by using call-only ads. And this just is a slightly different way of connecting people. You're using a slightly different ad format, but instead of sending people to a landing page and filling in a form, now we're just focused on getting calls into our site. In the year 2016, they introduced a new way to communicate using message extensions. Message extensions allowing people to specifically just text via their phone. So not necessarily having to pick up the phone and place a call, but if I want to send a text instead, I'm 28, the phone is lava, I don't want to talk to anyone, message extensions allow me to open that opportunity to similar kinds of people who might not be available to talk right now, or who increasingly prefer to do things like text. But now we're actually beginning to see some platforms build in new ways of connecting. This is actually a screenshot from Bing, of all places, where here at the very bottom, see the bottom of this ad, this questions ask Moonson restaurant bot for help. This chatbot is something that Microsoft actually filed a patent for earlier in 2017. And this is a product mock-up, at least, of how they plan for it to look. As chatbots actually become more and more popular, both in the US, but particularly abroad, you're going to see this continue to grow. And you're going to see new ways for us to connect people who are searching to something that can answer questions. So rather than having to pick up that phone call, if someone's just looking for a menu or is just looking for to know if you're still open on New Year's Day or what your hours are or something like that, rather than having you have to physically manage this, rather than having to have your ads close when you're asleep or not there to answer calls, or if you don't want to answer messages, well, an AI can be programmed to answer a lot of these frequently asked questions fairly easily, and a chat box could come in here and really make this a seamless connection. So this isn't a change in the fact that people are still searching for your ads, but how you connect to those people is definitely changing. But finally, and I'm really excited to demo this one, Google's been playing around with this notion of local service ads for a couple of years now. And so local service ads, they make it easy to connect consumers to trusted local professionals. So if I were searching for a locksmith, I would search for, locksmith in Boston, or in here, the demo on the right is a locksmith locked out in San Diego. And we see a lot of these locksmith nearby ads. And from here, we're able to serve, yes, a paid search ad, but above a paid search ad, we can specifically serve a carousel of locksmiths who are available that you can call right now to get you locked back into your apartment or back into your car, or a number of other services. And these local search ads are currently eligible to show for any kind of relevant search for your service. So here we see a locksmith ad again. it'll show for any number of searches related to a locksmith, very common keywords that you would expect advertisers to be bidding on. Locksmith near me, locksmith Boston, locked out, replace home locks, locked out of car, all of this stuff. And it's really nice. There's no keywords to manage in this kind of ad format. As of now, with this ad format, it originally started in 2015. It was in just the San Francisco Bay Area for locksmiths and plumbers. But over the past year, Google has actually opened this up to a total of 17 markets. So that's San Francisco, San Diego, Boston's one, Detroit's one, New York's one, a lot of US-based markets specifically. But as 2018 rolls out, and as they roll out the kinks of what legalities and what liabilities look like for sending a person to your site to like get you back into your car or back into your house, you're going to see more and more of these service ads open up, both in the United States markets, but I know that they're also looking in the Canadian and the UK markets as well. So this is a huge game changer for a lot of local service providers as well. So you click on the ad, and then it's specifically going to ask you a couple of questions about why you're looking for a locksmith. Are you locked out of your vehicle? Are you locked out of your house? Do you just need new keys? And then from there, Google will either allow you to call them or message them directly. And if that provider doesn't do that service in that particular area, it will connect you to a more appropriate provider. So it's a very positive interaction for both the advertiser as well as the searcher itself. And it's particularly exciting because these are eligible to show up on desktop devices in this kind of 3-pack format above the paid search ads. It'll show on mobile devices in a carousel where you can scroll left and right above the paid search ads. But I think it's really interesting because for the first time, we have a direct way to monetize voice search as well. That if we were to go through this process with a Google Assistant, which is available on nearly any Android now, as well as any Google Home Mini, or any other kind of Google Assistant enabled device, you'll actually be able to, as you can see, answer of this, and it'll recommend you place that call. And it'll place that call for you. So all of this is taking us outside that traditional search experience. And speaking of voice search, I think number 3 is the big one. Voice search goes mainstream. This isn't the first time that I've talked about voice search. I know that, again, similar, when I first started WordStream, if I started talking about voice search, I'd be that crazy guy with the wearing the tin hat in the corner. A lot of people might not necessarily believe that voice search is a big deal. But in 2017, 20% of all searches occurred via voice search rather than a text query. And some of that is via how we think of it with a Google Home or Google Home device or an Amazon device. But a lot of that is also with our smartphones. Or, Siri is enabled on our desktop devices. Or Cortana is enabled on all of our Windows PC devices. Or our Xbox is connected to Cortana. There are a number of ways. Voice search is actually so integrated into our lives today that actually this Friday, Google shared that the Google Assistant is on more than 4 million devices in the United States. And so, 400 million devices in the United States. So if you think about 400 million, I know that sounds like a big number, but it's an even larger number when you consider the fact that the US population is about 330 million. So right now, there are more Google Assistant-enabled devices than there are Americans. So this is a very large reach that they have, and these devices are generally always listening to us. So the amount of searches that come through these devices is increasingly growing. You look at how Google is advertising, how Amazon is advertising, how all these platforms are advertising. Google doesn't, when they run a TV ad, they don't send a TV ad and tell you to go to google.com and search. Instead, Google runs these TV ads, and therefore they're Google Home devices, or therefore they're Google phone devices, which are assistant-enabled, or they're looking at their Google app devices to get you to use Google Assistant more. So we're actually seeing the fact that as these devices continue to grow in number, just like our phones did 5 years ago, they're becoming a more and more common way for people to search. ComScore goes so far to say that by 2020, more than half of all searches will be driven by voice search rather than a typed query. So today that number is at 20%. I'm going to say by the end of the year, that number is going to increase another 50%. It's going to be closer to 30% of all search. But regardless of where we end up in 2018, on the horizon, this is really where search is going, is we're going away from the typed query kind of search, and we're going closer to something driven by voice search. And so that can be kind of threatening to people who rely on keywords and rely on typed queries and rely on text ads today. So as we start talking about voice search and preparing for 2018, we have to remember the fact that voice language, spoken language, voice language, that's how I'm going to have to call it, spoken language is different than how we necessarily type a query. So when we go to voice search, we're going to generally be asking question words. I don't just say, okay, Google, supermarkets. I have to ask Google, okay, where's the nearest supermarket to me? I have to think, so how we think of answering questions, we actually have to think about answering questions rather than coming up with matches to keywords. So think around answering, when we write our content or when we write our ads, we should think around answering questions related to the who, the where, who, when, and how kinds of questions that we see most common through voice search. And then again, where this isn't, these ads that appear on our screenless devices, Google is going to be looking at not keywords, but generally more structured data. Things like shopping feeds and local inventory ads are going to be the easiest for Google to incorporate into our answers. So if you were to, like, let's be real, all of us probably have some kind of Google Assistant device or some kind of other voice search assistant device in the room with us right now, because they outnumber us. If you were to go to that device and ask it to find the nearest Harry Potter book, it's going to give you a result, and it's very likely going to give you a result that's not the nearest place you can buy it, but the nearest place that has that local inventory ad, because Google really prefers that kind of structured data to necessarily finding it itself. So make sure that if you're not using shopping feeds, if you're not using local inventory ads, those kinds of things are going to help you a whole lot in being prepared for voice search. And then location matters here. Again, as the local service ads show us, as Google looks to monetize this, they're going to assume that people are looking for this while they're on the go, while they're talking to their smartphone, or while they're getting ready to leave their house or whatever. So we know that location matters, and being local matters a lot here. So we want to make sure that all of our local business information, our address, our phone numbers, our hours are correct and accurate in Google My Business. And if you don't have Google My Business, it's a free service. I highly recommend setting that up, particularly as voice search becomes more and more prominent. But beyond voice search, we should expect a rise in what's called visual search. And so visual search is kind of that new era of search moving forward. We're familiar with voice search, absolutely. We understand voice search, but visual search is a little bit different. Honestly, Pinterest has grown a monopoly on visual search. So all Pinterest allows you to do is allows you to search for pictures of certain things. And it grew in 2010, or it was launched in 2010. In 2015, it had an annual ad revenue of about $100 million. 2016, it tripled that, added 200 more million to it, came to $300 million. But last year it doubled again and is now at $600 million in annual ad revenue. And this is from Pinterest. Pinterest isn't what I'd consider the largest player in the game, but instead Pinterest is the only real visual search engine. In 2017, we really did not have this visual search outside of anything but Pinterest, but we see the fact that it's becoming increasingly common, not just amongst users as Pinterest grows its user base, but also amongst advertisers who are understanding that a lot of people are looking for this kind of search. So what we actually are seeing very similarly, if we follow patterns from Google and Bing, both of them are experimenting with visual search options today. So if we see this picture and we see this model in a magazine, or we see this model online, and we see this picture and like, wow, I really need to have this bag, I'm able to take that into Google or Bing now, and I'm actually able to specifically take the image and crop into this small portion of the image. And then in this case, this is a screenshot from Bing because this is public on Bing. But what we see is we'll be able to find more bags that are very similar to that bag within an image. Without even typing in a search, we're able to go in and we're able to see that specific bag on a site and see who's selling it. And so although right now image search is definitely monetized on both Google and Bing, this visual search is probably the very next thing to follow. So as people are bringing these bags, these pictures of bags, or as people are searching for that shirt or that tie or those earrings or that watch on certain pictures or within certain pictures, you should expect to see this kind of ad begin to roll out, where you're going to see people searching for this bag that they found in an image without necessarily even knowing what this bag is called or knowing this brand name of the bag, that you're able to scale your existing visuals as people search for those images rather than even searching for keywords themselves. So visual search, it's definitely going to grow over the next couple of years, but I'm going to expect the first inklings of monetization on it in 2018 with definite growth thereafter. So number 5, the search audiences kill our search keywords. And so for a long time, when you talked about search advertising, you're talking about this semantic kind of connection where people would search for a keyword and you would expect them to then see an ad for that keyword. But we're really seeing Google and Bing stray away from the strict definition of how keywords even serve ads. So in 2015, Google began automatically matching queries to close variants of keywords. So if I had this running shoes keyword and it was exact match and I only want to show whenever someone searched for running shoes, well, Google would begin searching me for when someone searched for running shoe, the singular version of that, or when they misspelled that word, or something very close variant, a semantic variant of that. Well, earlier in 2017, Google continued to relax that even more. Google began serving ads when keywords were reordered or when function words were added, removed, or changed. So my running shoes ad could serve to an ad for someone searching for shoes running or shoes for running or running in shoes or any kind of number of additional variants of that. So we see the fact that like keywords themselves no longer even really mean the same thing that they used to. And we're seeing real data in the fact that as we change how these keywords match out, we're also seeing our ads perform a whole lot differently. Just from making, I know that it sounds like a small semantic change, but making that one small semantic change to how keywords match out, we saw across 18,000 advertisers that increased impressions on those kinds of keywords by 8%, clicks by 10%, and costs increased by 11% on those kinds of keywords. And so that's got a lot of meaningful information in that kind of figure itself. But what we know is that search is so much more than keywords. I'm going to borrow Hemingway for a second, but someone searching for newborn shoes, there's a lot of context in that search that I don't know. If I'm searching for newborn shoes as a 28-year-old male who is not expecting any kids anytime soon, then I'm likely searching for a family member or a friend who just had a baby. versus someone who just had a baby is looking for this completely differently than I am. How we reach different audiences is so much more important than how we reach different keywords necessarily, because keywords don't buy your product, people do. So as we look at how Google's changing audience targeting, in 2013, they released remarketing ads for search ads. And so that allows us to cater ads slightly different to someone who's been to our site before. 2015, they released Customer Match. It allows us to upload an email list or a phone number list or even address list and reach our existing customers slightly differently, target our existing customers slightly differently than someone who we've never engaged with before. 2016, they released demographic targeting along age and gender for search ads. Later, they released parental targeting and household income targeting. And in 2017, they began to release similar audiences for search ads. Well, on the horizon, we actually know this is going to happen because Google announced it back in May, but we're still expecting life event targeting of users for people who have gotten married or recently get married, people who are graduating university or recently graduated university, or about to or recently moved. So think about someone who's looking to move across country. The number of things that, like if I search for a gym, it's January 1st, I'm likely going to be looking for, I could be looking to start a gym in my neighborhood, but if I'm looking to move across the country, well then all of a sudden this Boston search for a gym in San Francisco means a whole lot more if you know that I'm about to move. Also plans to release customer pattern targets. So you can reach people who frequently dine out, people who frequently visit salons, shop at different types of stores, or attend live events. Reaching these people based off of their activities is probably going to be way more effective than necessarily reaching people based off of what they're searching for. Because we know, again, the best predictor of future activity is their past history. Also, Google announced the fact that they will be rolling out in-market audiences for search ads in 2018. And so in-market audiences allow us to do a whole lot. So for instance, Michelle, you were recently promoted. Congratulations again. But I know the fact that you've been searching for a MacBook to replace what you're currently using for a while. And so I'm luckily not, I'm very happy with my PC, but we could both potentially run a search for this MacBook Pro 13-inch. We could use the exact same search term. But knowing the fact that you've likely done a lot of searches as you look at this product, we can very easily see the fact that someone like Michelle, who's run multiple searches for this in the past and browsed for multiple types of computers in the past, well, she's very clearly in market for a new laptop. So as we know the fact that Michelle's looking to buy a new laptop in the near future, well, it becomes very important for our ads to show to Michelle relative to showing to me, because I'm likely not going to buy a new laptop. So it's very easy, just without changing our keywords at all, we can very easily target people who are in market to buy our product rather than necessarily anyone who's searching for keywords. Up next, we're going to see advertisers lose control to automation. We've seen this trend go on for a number of years, but in 2017, it was a big year for loss of control. We see the fact that not only did we lose a lot of control in terms of how keywords match up to searches, but Google also took away controls for how ads rotate within an ad group as well, making A/B testing a lot more automated rather than manual. But we're actually beginning to see AdWords experiment with adding and creating new ads within an account itself. So if Google doesn't think that your ads are performing well at all, well then Google might go in and might automatically write ads for you. This poses some opportunity, of course, if those ads perform well, but if you've got a lot of brand standards or if you really care about your own messaging, this is also going to be a crisis for you. Because as Google automatically writes these ads, you might not see them. And if you don't see what you're serving your ads as, then who is? Everyone who's searching. And then you should have some kind of say in this. So obviously this is going to be an increasing problem as automation takes over, that you should expect more and more kinds of things like this introduced by AdWords whenever you, the human, aren't doing your job. So we see this more and more frequently. We see the fact that Google is creating and targeting your ads a lot more commonly. Google does this with shopping ads. It started doing it with dynamic search ads. Last year, they started doing this with smart display ads. But even that local service ads I talked about earlier, that doesn't use keyword targeting. It doesn't use ad creation at all. In fact, particularly on that voice search side, there's no place for you to necessarily tell Google what it's going to say about your business. So although automation is an exciting thing, we have to be very careful where we have brand standards. And so that's why I'm saying my number 7th prediction, that unchecked brand problems are going to continue to grow. So as we look at the Google Display Network, the largest display network in the world, reaches 3 million websites and apps. YouTube has 1 trillion videos, and even Facebook's audience network. It's growing very quickly. There's a lot of opportunity. A lot of that content is great to be served alongside. However, in those 3 million videos, in those 1 trillion videos and 3 million plus websites and apps, there's some content that you might not want your ad featured alongside. So do you want your ad featured right above or right below or alongside the 7 terrible, horrible, no good, very bad products of 2017? Well, the HR Certification Institute ad here probably did not intend for their ad to show up next to that title, but it did. And so although that might not be the worst place to, the best place to show up, automation is going to put your ads certain places you might not agree with. This is obviously a poor brand decision in this case, but in a more serious note, there is a lot of content on the web across these 3 million sites, across 1 trillion videos, that Google, Facebook, YouTube, all of it can't regulate all of this. And so as we enter 2018 with conversations about fake news and polarizing politics, death, tragedy, and at times malicious and hateful content, you do have to be concerned that your ads are going to continue to serve alongside that content. In 2017, it became a growing trend that advertisers were called out for their ads showing along these sites, and at times had to pull their advertising due to negative backlash from that. Although Google and Facebook are absolutely looking to safeguard this content, it's very difficult to necessarily stop fake news or to stop polarizing content or to stop, well, white supremacy and awful content like that on the web. So very, very genuinely, you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on where your ads are showing up, because it's likely that these types of content are going to continue to grow, unfortunately. And it's likely going to get a lot worse before it necessarily gets better, before Google and Facebook are able to identify this content and demonetize it early. So on that note, let's end it on a positive note. I'm expecting a new Bing that could potentially outpower both Facebook and Google in the next year. I know a lot of people kind of are going to laugh at that, because right now we live in a duopoly. Google and Facebook are giants in the industry, of course, and make up 77 cents per every dollar spent on digital advertising. The Wall Street Journal estimates that all of Microsoft's ad revenue, including Bing, account for only 4% of the US digital online market. So it's a very small underdog. So why would I make this kind of wild statement like this at the end? Well, Bing's doing fine on its own, to be honest. It currently makes up 35.6% of the US search market. A lot of people don't recognize that. Of course, Bing is partnered with just about every other search engine that isn't Google to make up that duopoly. So Bing powers Yahoo, AOL, DuckDuckGo, any other search engine under the sun. It powers Amazon search, it powers Facebook search, and it powers all of those voice search devices that are not specifically Google Assistant. So as that market grows, you're going to expect Bing to also grow significantly as well. But the reason I'm making this wild claim is people look at the giants a little bit differently. People look at Google and they look at search, and they look at search as being strong because you're able to target people who are actively searching. But you don't have a whole lot of control over who you're reaching while you're searching. Whereas on Facebook, you have a whole lot of control over who you're showing ads to, but you're specifically serving them ads when they're not searching for you. So people play this duopoly, as Google has these high intent searches on Google, but we don't have any kind of audience control. Facebook has this sophisticated audience control, but it's less intense. So a lot of us know that search and social together is the most powerful combination. And that's where I'm actually going to give credit to Microsoft where credit is due. You see, because Microsoft bought LinkedIn in 2016, and a lot of people didn't understand a reason why at the time. LinkedIn is certainly not as big as Facebook. It's one of the 5 largest social networks in the US, but it allows the same kind of advertising targeting that Facebook allows. So it allows advertising by demographic, but it also allows you to target people based off professional details, such as job title, company size, education, and skill. So if Microsoft were smart, and I know that they're exploring the opportunity, they would take this search platform that's growing and the social platform that are growing and pair the two together, allow them to share data between the two. If Microsoft pairs this targeting with Bing, just LinkedIn targeting with Bing, then it would actually allow us to begin to target people on the search based off of things like their job title, their education, or their skills. And that would be revolutionary to a lot of B2B professionals, knowing the fact that you would only be serving people who are in your industry or be searching for particular keywords within your industry as well. And that would allow us, Bing, to actually grow and have more powerful ad targeting than necessarily Google or Facebook. And so with that, I want to thank everyone for attending this webinar. And Michelle, I believe that you had a couple of offers for everyone today.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. First of all, Mark, awesome content. I don't know about you all online, but I'm kind of pumped for 2018. This seems like a pretty exciting year for PPC. So we're definitely going to save time and get to some of those questions that came in, like we mentioned. But in the meantime, while we're getting to those, I'm going to launch a special offer here. Mark is one of our certified experts here on the WordStream team. So he has spent a lot of time digging into customer accounts, and that's how he has all this incredible knowledge. We have a team of experts here, so if you're looking for someone to look into your specific account, AdWords, Facebook, Bing, etc., you can definitely click accept that offer right there, and we'll have one of our experts be in touch with you to do that. So while we get to these questions, make sure you choose which option you're feeling, and we will take it away with the questions. Okay, Mark, so one question that came in kind of frequently throughout the updates. Do we know which options are going to be free, which we'll have to pay for? Specifically, one of our listeners was interested in the local service ads. Are those going to be free?
So right now, as Google's playing with that in certain markets, they're starting off free and then they're becoming monetized. So like San Francisco launched it in 2015. It was a free service, and now they're running on a pay-per-lead system. So it's an affiliate marketing buy rather than necessarily a pay-per-click system. But that's very similar to what Google did when they first started launching shopping ads. Shopping listings were originally free, and then they became a pay-per-purchase, and then they became pay-per-click. And so I imagine that Google's doing what like most tech companies do, where they push adoption of it, and then they look for the the easiest way to monetize it, and they grow into something more sophisticated. So right now, local service ads are available in 17 US markets, slowly expanding thereafter. I know that 2018 is a big year for them to kind of go more international with it, but I do expect that as they get people on, they should be expecting to be in a pay-per-lead kind of system.
Awesome. And that answer actually leads beautifully into another question that came in about local service ads. How can an advertiser tell if they're available in their area?
Sure. I think that the fastest way to look at this is search for, like if you're a plumber, search for Plumber Boston or wherever your area is. See if you see those local services at the very top of the SERP. Google doesn't specifically call them sponsored listings or anything like that, but they all have that green Google guarantee check mark next to it, and Google guarantee can effectively mean sponsored here. So I definitely have a check at that, and then if interested, then it is available to most advertisers in those particular markets.
Awesome. We got one more question here that I definitely want to get to. There's a lot of interest in the buy option when you can buy straight through the Google ads. So once this becomes live across the board, how will advertisers know? How are they going to opt in? What's the process there?
Sure. So in the past, and again, I'm not Google, so things can change anytime over the year of 2018. But in the past, how this has happened is, I actually think I have a blog post on this from when it went into beta a couple of years ago. So if you were to Google WordStream purchase on Google, I'm sure there's a blog post at the very top of the SERP about it. At the very bottom of that, there's a link where you can opt in or you can express interest in it. Once it becomes publicly available, or once you're in that beta, then you're going to be able to go into your Merchant Center, and it's literally just a one-click button from there to opt into the actual purchase itself. You just have to be able to accept that kind of mobile payment. So if you as a business don't accept something like Google Wallet or Samsung Pay or something like that, then you really need to specify that there, because otherwise Google is going to be trying to process that payment, and you're going to be up a creek if you can't process it.
Awesome. Okay, great. Again, Mark, thank you so much for all this insight. For everybody on the line, I hope you guys are feeling excited and prepared for 2018 and PPC. And like I mentioned at the start, we've got tons of free tools and resources on our WordStream website, so be sure to check that out just to further prepare yourself. So with that, thank you all. Thank you to our expert, and we hope to see you guys on a future webinar.
Thanks, guys.